flower ceremony, sometimes referred to as flower communion or flower festival, is an annual event, an annual ritual that celebrates beauty, human uniqueness, diversity, and community. Originally created in 1923 by Unitarian minister Norbert Čapek of Prague, Czechoslovakia, the flower ceremony was introduced to the United States by Reverend Maya Čapek, Norbert's widow. In this ceremony, everyone in the congregation brings a flower. Each person places a flower on the altar or in a shared vase. The congregation and minister bless the flowers, and then they are redistributed. Each person takes home a different flower than the one they brought. The flower ceremony is a special, delightful, and unique UU ritual for me. I remember my first flower ceremony here at UUCCI with our interim minister, the Reverend Mary Moore. Being a newbie UUCCI member and still very shy, I felt as though that ceremony was a big communal welcome. I don't see flowers in the same way that I used to. Every time I've used someone's manicured lawn with many flowers blooming in the spring, summer, or early fall, I'm reminded of that first flower ceremony. I appreciate all their hard work, and I mentally thank them for sharing it with the world. Seeing wildflowers, and yes, even weeds, bloom out here in my area of Bartholomew County, I'm amazed by the timeless beauty of nature. They thrive without human intervention. It's there all through the year for me to see if only I take the time to look. So let us lighten our hearts with our own unique flower ceremony.
On the edge of the pavement, at the end of the world, the yellow eye of loneliness, blind steps beat drive his roots into the black earth of the sky. A dog's lifted leg mocks him with an overheated shower. His joy is only a stroller's homeless glance which spends the night in his Corolla, and so the stub burns out on the lower lip of impotence at the end of the world. There is a prayer in the gasp. I've lost my breath 1,000,000 times in this lifetime. The car accident, the water drank too fast, chasing people and love and dreams. Underwater in the pool with my cousins, we held our breath and counted to see who can stay under the longest. It is one thing to manipulate breath yourself. It is another to have it taken. There's a prayer in the sigh. I have sighed 1,000,000 times in this lifetime at being disappointed, being fired, at losing something important and someone important, and myself. I could not breathe when my grandmother traded in gasping for rest. I have held the smallest of hands that belong to the smallest of lungs and sang lullaby as breath betrayed dreams of motherhood. How could something as important as breathing be so fragile? I hold my breath as I consume the news, the virus. The virus takes over your lungs, and I cannot imagine what it must be like to drown within yourself. Even I. Seems there is prayer in the breath. As Unitarian Universalists, it is often said that we are all a part of a living tradition. Our religious tradition, which spans hundreds of years in both the United States and Europe, as well as in other places of the world, is a living, breathing, evolving, and ever-transforming history that you and I are now a part of in the year 2020. This matters because we are now not only a part of this history, we are also responsible for it and for its unfolding future. As Unitarian Universalists, it is often said that we revere the past, but we trust the dawning future more. Our reverence and trust holds us. Our reverence for life and nature and humanity, our trust and commitment to one another and to liberation and justice and peace for all, these are the tools that we are given as we face this harrowing time in human history and American history. 2020 has not been an easy year to trust, to assume that goodness will prevail, that all will be well, or that the moral arc of the universe truly bends towards justice. No, 2020 has been a year where viruses have emerged in great force to snuff out life and leave fear and discord in their wake. We have talked for months about the coronavirus and how this pandemic has undeniably changed our lives and forced us to consider how we are to live with one another and for one another in ways that do the least amount of harm. We have explored our fears and discovered language and ways of being that can uplift life and provide comfort and joy amidst the uncertainty and chaos. But there is another virus that has reemerged in 2020, a pandemic that has reared its head once more, that perhaps has always been present. But for those of us with some levels of privilege, we may have simply felt asymptomatic to its ravages. In a recent article in our local newspaper, The Republic, activist and writer Brittany Talisa King writes of another pandemic in the United States, which she refers to as Racism 19. Of course, this pandemic refers not to 2019, but 400 years prior, when the first enslaved Africans were savagely brought to this stolen land in 1619. King makes remarkable comparisons between our collective response to the two pandemics as a nation and how strikingly different they have been. She reflects on the drastic precautions we took as a nation as the true dangers of COVID-19 came into view. King writes, "We literally closed our cities, our schools and workplaces. We shut down millions of our freedoms, dining out, going to the movies, exercising at the gym, hanging out at local bars, and worshiping in our churches. Let's not forget that we canceled the NBA, our NFL Sundays, and the 2020 Olympic Games. Heck, we even got New York City to sleep. We nearly collapsed our economy for our well-being, for our health, so that we could stay alive." She then pivots to a provocative question. What if America took white supremacy as serious as COVID-19? Could you imagine? What would it be like for us, for Columbus, Bartholomew County, Indiana, or the United States to grind to a halt, knowing that lives are at risk, that people will die, that are dying, if we do not change our ways, if we do not stop and reckon with this pandemic of white supremacy, culture, and hundreds of years of structural systemic racism in America? As mentioned earlier, we are responsible for our living tradition as Unitarian Universalists, and here in 2020 we look to our past for guidance for how we might move forward with steadfast resilience and commitment to our values. Each year we honor a ritual of resistance through the flower ceremony. The flower ceremony has been handed down to us through the ministry of Reverend Chapek, or rather through his wife, or should I say widow, since he was murdered by the Nazis for his values and ministry of love, of inclusion, and justice for all. Nazis, white supremacist ideologies murdered Chapek and millions of other people. But of the remnants, one of the seeds that made its way to us has not died, but taken the form of this simple ritual of bringing and exchanging a flower, symbol of our collective humanity, our sacred worth, and our interdependence in this world. The flower ceremony reemerges once a year to remind Unitarian Universalists of the importance of resistance and the need to fight oppression in all its forms. And this year, now in 2020, if there ever was a clear enemy of the people, it is visible now. White supremacy culture and ideology is killing Black and brown human beings and furthering the chasm between where this world is and to where we know we must go. And so just as the resistance to Nazis in the 1930s and 40s, we must recognize now what is before us and commit ourselves anew to Black liberation, to dismantling supremacy, white supremacy culture, and to ridding this world of systemic oppression. I chose two poems to guide us this morning. They are written with chilling and painful beauty. Losing My Breath was written by Ana Maria de la Rosa, who serves as a senior grassroots organizer with the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. She vividly reminds us of the necessity for breath and the utter fear and deathliness that can consume one who feels their breath is being taken from them. I Can't Breathe is a rallying cry for the Black Lives Matter movement because so many people have been killed with that horrific realization coming over them as they struggle to stay alive. I can't breathe. Ana Maria de la Rosa reflects that there may very well be a prayer in the breath, a prayer in the breath of life of those seeking to rise up against white supremacy, to rise up for liberation, rise up for fresh air and for human rights. There may be a prayer in the breath, and it may move us all to breathe and act and fight like hell against all the hells wherever they may come to manifest in this world. And the other reading I chose this morning is from the late Serbian poet Vasco Popa. In this poem, he writes of dandelions, my father's favorite of flowers, by the way, remarking of their particularly difficult existence, as he writes, on the edge of the pavement, at the edge of the world, where they can be stepped on, mocked, and disregarded by passersby. I've been wrestling with these two poems this week and reflecting on the state of our country, of the destructive and insidious nature of white supremacy culture, and then, of course, on this perennial flower ceremony for which we celebrate and honor today. And what brought it all together for me was the wisdom of Adrienne Maree Brown. Now, if you do not know who Adrienne Maree Brown is, please check out her work in the Detroit area and purchase one of her books, Emergent Strategy, from a local or Black-owned bookstore today. This book was made for times such as these. I won't give the whole book review, but one of my favorite parts of it has fundamentally shifted how I understand community organizing and how social change happens in this way. In her book, she writes about various natural phenomena and how they offer principles for life and for liberation. I want to share one quote that speaks to the resilient nature of dandelions. In this quote, she also refers to mushrooms as well, so a little bonus for you. Adrienne Marie Brown writes, "My favorite life forms right now are dandelions and mushrooms. The resiliency in these structures, which we think of as weeds and fungi, the incomprehensible skill, the clarity of identity excites me. I love to see the way mushrooms can make substances we think of as toxic and process them as food, or that dandelions spread not only themselves but their community structure, manifesting their essential qualities, which include healing and detoxifying the human body, to proliferate and thrive in a new environment. The resilience of these life forms is that they evolve while maintaining core practices that ensure their survival. A mushroom is a toxin transformer. A dandelion is a community of healers just waiting to spread. What are we as humans? What is our function in the universe?" This is a powerful reframing of a particular flora that is often considered a weed, something that is in the way, something to be removed. Dandelions, in fact, are regenerative, resilient, and beautiful. And I'm starting to realize why my dad has loved them all these years. And this is of particular importance on this Flower Sunday for those of us with power and privilege, especially those of us who are white. We must shift our consciousness and our actions so that we put an end to the destructive harm inflicted upon our Black and brown siblings, and to our complicit silence and inaction regarding white supremacy and racism in this country. The flower ceremony is a ritual of celebrating human diversity and of our universal family. But it is also, without question, a ritual where we say enough. Enough death, enough division, enough with this foolhardy quest to justify the use of force and an ethic of control in the name of democracy, in the name of social cohesion, in the name of peace. For it is not peace when we both draw guns and neither of us shoot. It is not peace when our world is segregated and the resources disproportionately allocated. It is not peace when we look at a beautiful flower garden and disregard the flowers beneath our feet, which we have deemed merely weeds. My friends, our country is opening its heart, as painful as it might be, to address our original pandemic of racism in this country. There is an opening, a window, a momentary possibility, dare I say, a hope, to recognize this disease and address it with courage and faith, in trusting that this garden, the whole garden of our world, is worthy of collective liberation and celebration. Let us do our work in responsibly carrying forward our living tradition. Let us do our work within our own hearts and in the heart of our community, our city, state, and nation. Healing is possible. Transformation is possible. Our living tradition reminds us of this. It is with reverence and trust that we now make it so once more. May it be so, and amen.